So I had a really good conversation with Ryan yesterday, and for those of you that don't know, Ryan is my best friend and my business partner in a separate venture called The Shredded Golfer. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you do on Instagram. But it reminded me of something that I think is definitely worth talking about. Because a year ago, I was sat on my sofa on some random Wednesday afternoon, watching Ryan through a YouTube stream on my TV graduate over in America. He just spent 4 years over in the States whilst I was back home working on my businesses. That was the extent of the situation. Just two mates, one graduating and one already working on his business, sat on his sofa at home. And if we fast forward 3 months from that point, we were having a conversation about potentially launching a business together. We'd been bouncing ideas around for a number of years now, but it was at this point that we finally sat down as he was back home, taking it seriously. We were like, right, are we actually gonna do this? And we did. And if we fast forward to now, which is about 6 months from that initial conversation, we've already got and launched a business that is generating us a few £1,000s a month from a beta cohort, which is fucking class. But that's not actually the point that I wanna drive home. The point is what this represents. Because 2 years ago, I genuinely could not have done this. Not because the opportunity wasn't there, because to be honest, at that point in time, I had way more opportunities than I do right now. And it's not because I didn't have the skills, because I could have easily started this business a few years ago. But it's because I was so fucking overwhelmed with what I already had on my plate that the idea of starting something else, adding more on, was just laughable. I could barely manage the business that I had, let alone starting another one. And I know a lot of you that are listening to this right now are likely in that same position. You've got the business and maybe it's doing okay. It's likely doing well on paper. You've got clients, you're getting great results, and you're bringing in some decent money. But internally, it feels like you're holding the whole thing together with sellotape. And if somebody came to you tomorrow with a new opportunity, maybe that is another business, a partnership, maybe a big client that you want to take on board, you might have to say no because you don't feel like you would have the capacity to be able to take that on, even though objectively you probably do. Everything that you have right now is being used towards keeping you afloat. And that was me. It took so much of my energy, my resources, my capacity to just keep myself afloat, keep myself in the same position. And if we call a spade, I was operating like what I call a zigzag entrepreneur. I'd have 1 week where I was flying. I was in this state of hyper focus. I felt like I could just run through walls. But then the next week, I'd fall off completely. I'd lose all that energy, get pulled in 15 different directions, and went through that period of time of not doing anything meaningful inside of my business. So my efforts constantly went up and down, up and down. It was peak, trough, peak, trough. And the problem with that pattern is that you never stay in a straight line of execution long enough to build any form of momentum, because momentum fundamentally requires consistency in the same direction, not consistency of effort. I want to be really clear about that, because I know many of you are going to be feeling like you're working hard every day, but it's not about grinding hard every day at the same intensity. It's about making sure that when you do work, all of that work is going in the same direction. You're focusing on the highest leverage task right now. It's ensuring that all of your energy, your focus and your resources are directed towards the biggest constraint that you have in your business right now, the highest leveraged activity that you need to be working on, not just busybody work that your brain feels slightly interested by. And when you're operating from the mode of zigzagging, you will feel like you're working hard, but nothing will be compounding. It'll feel like you're just running in circles or in a state of what I call motion, where you're swimming against the tide. You're exerting that energy and effort just to stay in the same place, which is exhausting and demoralizing because you're putting in an inordinate amount of hours and energy and effort, but you can't point at any real progress that's being made. To get out of that state and to be able to run now 3 businesses. So what actually changed for me? What did I do differently to get myself out of that state and put myself in a position where now I'm running 3 businesses on just 5 days a week? Well, honestly, a huge factor of that is how I plan and execute. Specifically, I started running something that I call hunts. Every 90 days, I would lock onto one specific tangible target, and everything I do for that 1 quarter serves that one specific goal. And if it doesn't serve the hunt, it does not get my attention. And if it does get my attention, but doesn't serve the hunt, then I put it into a list that I've called the parking lot, so I can come back to it at a later date. Maybe I'll revisit it when I'm planning out the next hunt, and I'll see if it fits. That is it. That is one of the biggest shifts that I've made in how I operate. It sounds simple, and it is, because it needs to be. But for those of us that are higher up on that ADHD spectrum and running businesses, this is a game changer, because our natural tendency is to just chase and lock onto whatever feels most urgent or most interesting to us. And without a clear target for us to always anchor to, we're just going to end up drifting off of the straight line. So now at the start of every single quarter, I set a hunt, and that hunt dictates all of my actions, all of my energy, and all of my focus for the next 90 days. And this allows me to know at all times what it is that I'm chasing. And from here, I'm then able to determine what are the 3 main projects that need to be completed that drive that main overarching hunt that I'm on. And then from those 3 projects, that informs me on what the 5 aligned actions are that I need to complete to drive those 3 projects. And my focus then is just to tick off some of those aligned actions every single week. The beauty of this system and this way of operating is that it's not rigid. It's not some color-coded spreadsheet that makes me want to gouge my eyes out, or something that I build and I never look at again. It's more like a compass that I can continuously refer back to, allowing me to always know which direction I'm heading in, what actions I need to continuously be taking and things I need to continuously be ticking off to put me on a straight line focus. And when something shiny pops up, which constantly does, because you and I both know our brains are always looking for the next thing, I can check it against the current hunt and against the current target. And I just need to ask myself a very simple question. Does this idea serve the current hunt? And if the answer is no, cool, I put it into the parking lot. And maybe I can revisit it next quarter if I feel that it's appropriate to do so. Because again, what I've realized is a lot of these shiny objects that pique my interest in the moment, after a period of time, and I come back to them, I realize that they're not actually that important. They're not things that deserve a great deal of my attention. It's just that in the moment, when I come across it, I get so much dopamine from the new idea that my brain just wants to run through a wall and start taking action on the thing straight away. That's why it's really important that we have almost like a filter for making our decisions, not having to act on that thing straight away. Being able to acknowledge that the idea is there, hold it up against the criteria, potentially put it in that parking lot system, and at a later date when the novelty has worn off around the idea, we can approach it from more of a logical point of view as to whether this actually serves the hunt or not. And honestly, that one change that I've made, having the ability to lock in on a singular target for 90 days instead of bouncing around week to week, is what allowed me to create the space to build this business with my friend. Because when you create the capacity for execution, when you're not scattered, wasting your energy on ultimately bullshit, you free up cognitive bandwidth. You stop feeling like you're constantly drowning every day, and you're able to create a bit of breathing room. And when you've got room to breathe, these opportunities that present themselves to you will stop feeling like threats. They'll stop feeling like the thing that's going to sink your ship, and they start truly feeling like the possibilities and opportunities that they are. Because here's what I've realized. The ability to take on these opportunities, to take on more work, to take on more clients, to work with better clients, isn't about working harder. Despite me for probably 8 years thinking that that was the case, which ultimately just led to me burning out continuously. It's not about finding more hours. When I was scattered, I know categorically that I was working more hours than I currently am, getting significantly less output because my time was fragmented, my focus was fragmented, and as a result, my progress was fragmented. But now I work within a structure that is designed specifically for how my brain actually operates. Sprint, rest, sprint, rest. I establish what the highest leverage goal is that I need to achieve, or the constraint that I need to overcome inside of my business. I lock in on that one target, I execute, I recover and rest, and then I go again, setting the next target, establishing the next hunt. And because of that, I've been able to take on this exciting opportunity without my own current business suffering. So despite what many of us think when we're looking at other people that are maybe able to take on more work than us, this isn't about being superhuman and juggling a million things at once. That is not how those of us with a hunter brain get great work done. It's the opposite. It's about being laser focused on one thing at a time, so you can throw everything at it and actually finish it. You can build momentum and then create space. And this is actually one piece of what I call the execution stack that I work on with all my clients. It's the fundamental and foundational layer of the pyramid at the bottom that we call base camp. Because if you don't know what direction you're going in, you don't know what hunt you are currently on, nothing else matters. But when you do have that in place, that's when we start looking at your energy architecture, your weekly rhythms, the decision filters that we can put in place. And all of it is designed for those of us that have brains that are higher up on that ADHD spectrum. Because I guarantee you, if you're anything like me, the execution advice that you've likely been given in the past, which is often seen as productivity advice, is designed for somebody that has a different brain to you. And that is exactly why it didn't stick. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because it was the wrong operating system for how your brain and hardwire works. I just wanted to share that because I know how important it is. It has been instrumental for me to be able to get more done in a year than I probably have in the previous 5. A year ago, I was sat on my sofa watching his graduation, and now I've got a business with that same person. And the only reason that that is possible is because I sorted my execution problems out. I am able to lock in on a singular target, have a straight line focus for a period of time, and not get distracted by all of these other shiny objects and great ideas. That is it. It is nothing fancy. There is no secret hack. I'm just now every day operating within a system that works for how my brain is designed, rather than me constantly fighting against it, beating myself up and wondering what's wrong with me. And if you're sat there right now feeling like you can barely manage what you've currently got going on, then I get it. I've been there. But trust me, it doesn't have to stay that way. Figure out what your next hunt is going to be. Create your parking lot system and build a daily practice of keeping your eyes locked on to what the current hunt is. And everything that is not that, put it to the side. Allow yourself to get into a state of momentum for the next 90 days, and you will achieve things that you never thought were possible.